Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my home in Livingston, Montana. Okay, you know what it is? It's story time. Now, if you folks don't want to hear a good old fashioned, truthful Montana hunting story, click this video off right now and save yourself time. Okay, couple 2 or 3 hours ago, I made a review video on this KFC knife right here, and I was complaining about batoning knives. You know, that in the world of bushcrapping, that's where you take a knife and you put it on say, a round piece of wood or whatever have you, and you start banging on, hitting the knife on the top of the hilt there with a piece of wood or a 2x4 or whatever to help you make kindling or cut notches or whatever have you. But nonetheless, you're batoning, i.e. hitting this knife. I got news for you, ladies and gentlemen. A knife is an instrument for just cutting mostly. Mostly. A knife is not a screwdriver. A knife is not a hatchet. A knife is not a axe or a hammer or any of this other stuff. I believe in beating on a knife only in an emergency situation. I've got a story to tell you here, and hopefully by the time I'm done with this story, maybe some of you will think twice about beating on a cutting instrument known as a knife. Okay, this hunting story happened back in either 1993 or 1994. I lived in Butte, Montana at the time, and I worked for the Bureau of Mines and Geology. It was a state job, okay? Hang on here for just a second. I need a little tea. Let me get the frog out of my throat. Anyway, a couple of guys that I worked with got the bright idea. They told me when they approached me this, they wanted to go mule deer hunting. And they wanted to go over to a place called the Ruby Mountains, which if you Google the Ruby Mountains, the Ruby Mountain Range is north and east of Dillon, Montana. It's south of Butte, okay? It's over by Alder, Montana, Sheridan, Montana, Virginia City, Montana, in that neck of the woods. I'd never been in that country before. So anyway, this one guy, I'm going to have to call him Numbnuts because he's got the same name as me, Jim. And now, don't get all mad here. I'm just joking, but I'll call him Numbnuts. And my other friend, his name is Orrin. Well, we were going to be going hunting in Numbnuts' blazer. He had a fairly new blazer, and he had a brandy new wife, a brandy new bride. Okay, come to find out, Numbnuts had actually been hunting this area for a few weekends prior to this situation that happened, and I was just too stupid to know that. But anyway, as this story unfolds, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So anyway, old Numbnuts tells me, he says, okay there, Jim, he says, I'll be over at your place at 3:30 in the morning, Saturday morning, and pick you up. We got to take off real early because it takes an hour and a half to drive over there, blah, 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 blah. We got to be up on that mountain first light and all this other stuff. Well, sure. You know, like I say, this guy had been hunting that area before, and so that's the deal. So all four of us pile in his blazer, they come and pick me up, and there's Numbnuts, his wife, my buddy Orrin, myself, and down the road we go. We drive all the way over to the Ruby Mountain Range, and we park right at the bottom of these foothills. We park on BLM land. We were going to be hunting on BLM land. That's taxpayer land, Bureau of Land Management. It's government land, and everything was legal about that, except for you couldn't have any vehicles up there. That's the deal. So we park where we're supposed to and everything, and Numbnuts there and his wife, they grab their gear, they grab their rifles, and up the mountain they go. Now, this area, ladies and gentlemen, is ranging land. We got a lot of ranging land in Montana. It isn't all mountains and timber. Now, this country here had mountains in it, don't get me wrong. But the timber was up way higher than Numbnuts' blazer. He had a fairly new blazer. So they take off in a great big old hurry, and I'm thinking, man, these guys are, I'm a believer in early rising when it comes to hunting, but this guy was in a hurry, and so anyway, I grab my gear and take off, and my buddy Orrin takes off and goes and does his thing. As soon as I got up high enough, I wasn't in any timber. I was in open territory. I got my binoculars out and I'm looking around and I thought, I'm just going to hang around low down here and see if I'll just let those guys go, run the ridges, so to speak, and maybe they'll scare a mule deer down to me, I mean, I've been hunting mule deer for a lot of years and I've used ambush tactics a lot, Okay. I spent about 2, 3 hours, 4 hours, something like that. It was getting on about noonish or so, 11 o'clock or whatever have you. And I didn't see any game, so I came back down to Numbnuts' Blazer. Either give me a sandwich, give me a beer, do something. Knowing me back in those days, I was probably going to throw a beer down, Anyway, so I'm down there at the Blazer, and here comes my buddy Oren, hopping and popping down the mountain. He goes, Jim, you gotta help us. You hurry up, come up here. And I looked at Oren and I said, go where? For what? And he says, Numbnuts up there, he's a couple ridges over, he shot himself a bull elk. I said, bull elk? Now, for you folks that don't know, I mean, a bull elk is about 3 or 4 times heavier than your average mule deer. It takes 4 grown men to drag a bull elk any distance at all. And I'm going, oh no. I said, now where in the hell did Numbnut shoot this bull elk at? And he goes, that big tall ridge way up over there with the trees on it? He's up there. Well, it's a place called Peterson Ridge, right up above a place called Mormon Creek. Just Google it. If you Google hard enough, you'll find it. And I'm thinking to myself, holy crap, because I knew we was really into it with this guy about that area. Okay, where he dumped that bull elk was 2 miles at least away from his Blazer, okay? So I looked at Oren and I says, did Numbnuts give you his keys to this Blazer here? And Oren says, yeah, I got the keys right here, I said, give them to me, because, I'm starting to get a little irritated because I know I'm really in for this. I know I'm going to be the engineer that's going to have to move a lot of weight. That's what this is boiling down to. So, up the mountain we go with this Blazer, and we go right past this little sign saying no motorized vehicles beyond this point, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't care because I knew we needed to get that Blazer just as close to that bull elk as we absolutely could. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. You don't drag a bull elk very far in the mountains up here in Montana. They're heavy animals. So we get up on the first major ridge, and we're 2 ridges over from, counting the ridge that Numbnuts is on. But I get outside the Blazer from the first major ridge where I could see the ridge that he was on, and I get my binoculars. I had a big, nice pair of Burris binoculars, and I get out there and I'm looking around, and there I finally see old Numbnuts. He's standing up on a big old rock, waving his arms. I can see his wife jumping up and down and everything. So I have to assess the situation real quick here, ladies and gentlemen. I take a look around and I thought, because the way that was, it was just way too steep for us to have to bring that bull down that particular ridge, that Peterson Ridge, and across Mormon Creek, and especially back up where we were sitting. I mean, just too steep, way too steep. So I told Oren, what we got to do is take this ridge line and drive down here. I said, because we're going to end up having to pull that bull up a Peterson Ridge and ride down this ravine, meaning Mormon Creek, and try to hook up with the Blazer like that. So Oren says, okay, good plan. So we drive over to where we're not too far off of the bottom of that ravine, maybe like 100 yards. I grab my pack and everything, and I throw a bunch of stuff in there to drink and whatever have you. And up Mormon Creek I went and cut off to my right as soon as I got high enough up there and cut up Peterson Ridge to get to where Numbnuts and his wife were with this dead bull elk. Now this was a raghorn. A raghorn is a 3-point raghorn. It's where the horns on the elk don't grow symmetrical. The horns are all twisted up and look weird and everything. In this country, we call them raghorns, but that's what he shot, was a raghorn. It was a perfectly legal elk and all that stuff. So I hump all the way up Peterson Ridge, get up there. It takes me about 45 minutes from where I parked the Blazer to get up to where old Numbnuts and his wife are, and I seen the biggest, bloodiest mess you ever seen. You know, more or less guts and parts of elk all over the place and whatnot have you. He basically shot that elk at point blank range with that reminds me, a 300 Winchester Magnum, and ruined a whole bunch of meat. And that's another thing he did. You know, and this dude here, he was from Delaware, and I knew doggone well that he had his head clear up his derriere when it come to hunting elk. And I looked at him and I said, "What's this? All this nonsense? You know, what's this mess here and everything? You know." Because as a hunter, he should have been doing a much better job of field dressing his animal. And he looked at me and he goes, "I broke my knife." That's the key to this story, ladies and gentlemen. That's the crux of this story. I broke my knife. And I looked at old Numbnuts there and I said, "How in the hell did you do that?" And he says, "Well, I was trying to take them legs off." And it's true, ladies and gentlemen, the lower part down to the hubs, you can't eat none of that on an elk. But what he had done, he had a Buck Vanguard knife. You know, not like this knife here, but somewhat similar. It was a Buck Vanguard. I remember that all too well because he broke it off right here. It wasn't even a full tange knife, but right here at the hilt is where he broke it off. But he was trying to get those legs off of that elk, and he was built, you know, on the backside of the knife like this. He had a rock and he'd been pounding on his knife trying to break those legs off, and he broke his knife. And there he was, screwed. He couldn't do nothing, and he never had no rope with him. He didn't have no string with him. When I go, I always bring paracord with me, a drag rope, all kinds of stuff like that. So there I am with a big old pack, and I got everything in there. As a matter of fact, Numbnuts there, he gets a nosebleed, a high altitude nosebleed. I got to stop everything I'm doing to treat him for that. But anyway, I got busy on that elk, and what I decided to do was bone the elk out, get rid of as many bones as I possibly could. I put the meat inside the carcass, inside the hide, if you will. And then I took some paracord and I sewed up the hide where the belly was. You know, I just sewed that elk up, took the legs off, the whole dang 9 yards, boned the elk out, and we left the head on because we had to. Montana, the Fish and Game law said that at the time that we had to leave the head attached to the carcass. That's in case you got stopped by the game warden, that he could make easy identification of the animal that you had harvested. So, I mean, there's precious time ticking by while all this is going on, you know. I mean, first of all, they had to go find me and then get me up there, and I had to end up doing all this work. And anyway, we take off down the mountain, you know, because all we basically had to do at that point in time, which is a lot of work. I had to we had to side hill down Peterson Ridge, down into Mormon Creek, which that creek was dry, by the way, and then drag the elk all the way down to where that Blazer was at. And of course, these guys were of little help. I ended up doing most of the dragging, but you have to realize I reduced the weight of that elk by half, and gravity was helping me, you know. And then when we get down there by the Blazer, I had about 100 yards on. I had to pull that pile of meat, because that's basically what it was just one great big pile of meat sold up in a hide, and I had to pull that up about 100 yards to that Blazer. And believe you me, by the time this was all done and said, ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at one cowboy here, you're looking at one buckskin that was very, very tired, because I had to engineer us getting that elk off of that hill up there, busted knife and all, down to that Blazer. Okay, by the time we get that elk loaded up at the ass end of that Blazer, it was snowing. It started snowing. And it put down, by the time we even started to pull up along the ridge to go up to hit the access road to go down to where we came in, it had already put down, you know, like 6 inches of snow and all of that stuff. And basically what happened is we we lost track of where I had come up, where the access road come up. To make another long story short, it kept snowing more and more and more, and we ended up going like a mile or two past where we were supposed to turn off. We ended up in no man's land. We ended up in like a foot and a half of snow or whatever have you. It got dark on us, and then Numbnuts got his blazer stuck, and we were stuck, and you know what? And we had to spend the night up there. And I know to this day, if that idiot stick hadn't have broken his knife, we could have got out of there sooner, and none of this would have happened. But yeah, all four of us ended up spending the night, and his wife, I remember that all too well. They were a brandy new married couple, and she was just absolutely freaking out. She figured we were going to die and every other thing, and I had to settle her down and whatnot have it. Anyway, we slept in we weren't set up for camping or none of that, but we slept in that blazer the night, and then we woke up the next morning, and old Numbnuts there said, "Well, Jim, what are we going to do?" And I looked at him and I says, "I've done all I'm going to do there, pal." So I had him and his wife, hump out of that. I knew there was a road down in and below where we were at, because every once in a while we hear a vehicle down there and whatever have you. But I basically had him and his wife hump out to the nearest farmhouse, and Numbnuts got a hold of some relatives over in Butte. They were actually over in Anaconda, and to bring us some chains. Yeah, we had to set up there until some people drove all the way up there, humped up, and brought us a set of chains so that we could get chained up and get his rig out of there. All on the count of a busted knife, ladies and gentlemen. This is why I do not believe, this is just one incident, but there's got to be some other way you can get done with whatever you're doing than taking a rock and busting a perfectly good knife like what happened in this story. And this actually happened. Then, of course, naturally, I got the blame for getting them lost and all this other crap. None of that's true. It was just one thing right after the other that happened that got us stranded tonight. But we got out of there. We got back to Butte on Sunday about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was glad to get away from old Numbnuts there, Okay, there you are. Don't beat on your knives. I don't think it's worth it. Thank you very much for listening to this story. And like always, we shall see you on down the trail.